A watercolor color mixing tutorial. That's what we're doing in today's video, and I'm going to give you 6 of my favorite color recipes. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Michelle, and on this channel you'll find watercolor color mixing, watercolor techniques, tutorials, and a little bit of mixed media too. Please do consider subscribing. If you click the little bell icon, you can get notified every time I have a new video for you. I make one free video here a week on YouTube on a Thursday with extra content on Saturdays for my Patreon subscribers. Now in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make 6 new colours. So we're going to take some really basic colours that you've probably got perhaps in a beginner's palette. I'm going to mix 2 colours together to make a 3rd colour. Really simple, right? I'm going to show you exactly how it's done, and we're going to do 6 colours. So if you've just got a beginner's set, perhaps just a few primaries, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make some secondaries and some neutrals. Really basic, useful colours that are going to come in so handy when you're working on landscapes, florals, or anything else. Now in this tutorial I'm going to be using my essentials set, so these are colours that I designed myself, and I'll be telling you more about them. But don't worry, if you don't have the same brand as me or even the same colours, I'm going to give you alternatives all the way through the tutorial, so you'll be able to follow along no matter what paints you've got at home and mix some great new colours. So let's start with greens, shall we? And this is a problem that beginners get into most often, I find, because I've been teaching classes for years, and if you're new to colour mixing, you don't really understand, the temptation is just to go for those ready-made greens that you've got in your palette, and there are some very nice ready-made greens available, and ready-made greens can be adjusted, but it's easy just to keep going back to the same greens again and again and end up with these very harsh sort of Viridian type phthalo greens, and everything looks a little bit samey in your landscape painting. So I'm going to mix for you first of all a really punchy bright sort of apple green, and then we're going to go for a much more muted green. So let's get started with our bright apple green. So I've got the camera quite close to my drawing board today, so you'll be able to see the swatches up close, and these are the colours that I will be using. So this is my essentials set, and these are made in the UK by Jackman's Art Materials. So that's Jackman's, not Jackson's. Some of you are going to the wrong website and getting a little bit confused. I'm going to swatch each of these colours and show you the other colours we're going to make from them. As I said, don't worry if you don't have these colours, you can use your own colours. So I'm going to show you each of the colours that we're using today, and I'm going to give you alternatives if you don't have these particular ones. So we're going to start off making an apple green, and I'm going to be using this yellow, which is Hansa yellow, and I'm going to be using this blue, which is Phthalo blue green shade. So let's start looking at the Hansa yellow. So it's a beautiful bright yellow, and if you don't have this one, then you want to be using lemon. So you can use any of your lemon yellows, including cadmium lemon. So there's our bright, cool green based yellow, and that's the first one we're going to use. And whenever you use a colour like Hansa or lemon, you're going to get a very nice bright green. And the next colour is the Phthalo blue, and you can see it's a very strong colour. If you're wondering why it's called Phthalo blue green shade, that just is because the phthalo pigments come in a range, and this is the one that tends towards the sort of yellow green turquoise end of the spectrum. So if you have a phthalo blue green shade, you can use that. At a push you can use the phthalo green red shade, you just won't get quite the same bright result. And you can also use colours like Prussian. Again, you'll get a lovely bright green, just not quite as bright as with the phthalo. You could as well use a colour like cerulean or manganese. You're just going to get a much softer result, but you'll still be able to get those nice bright apple greens. So let's mix these two together and get our apple green. So when mixing most greens, you want to start with the yellow because it's the weaker of the colours. And you generally want to start when mixing greens with the weakest of the 2 colours, because otherwise you can find the colour gets completely overwhelmed by one of the hues that you're using. And if you mix a colour and you're so far wrong with it, you know, it looks completely the wrong colour, you can end up putting, you know, half a tube of paint in before you adjust it back correct again. So I really do suggest you just work in with small amounts of colour like this until you get to the right result. So we're starting to get our apple colour there. It's a little bit wishy-washy, so I'm just going to go in with more paint so we just get a stronger version of it. So we'll go in there with a bit more yellow. Of course, you know, with any of these mixes there's a multitude of versions. we could stop here. I'm going to go a little bit more in with the blue. We're going to start getting that lovely apple colour. So let's swatch this one. There we have a nice fresh apple green. So bright greens are great, aren't they? But everything needs a bit of contrast, and you don't want every green in your painting to be super bright because it just becomes a bit overwhelming and looks a bit unnatural. So we're going to contrast this with a really, really muted green now. So let me show you how it's done. So let's mix a much duller green now, and we're going to use this one here, which is yellow ochre. So this is technically an earth colour, and it's a really granular, semi-opaque colour. There aren't many alternatives to this one actually, but I've never yet met a beginner's set that doesn't contain yellow ochre, so I think you're going to find that you have it in your set. If you don't, you could experiment with raw sienna or Naples yellow, but the idea that you might have those and not this would be that would be a very strange set, unless you've just sort of, you know, I know some people inherit a few colours from a grandparent or something, so you could try those other colours. But if you've bought a standard beginner's set, it will contain yellow ochre. It's a really useful colour, and this is a nice bright one. Now we're going to combine it with French Ultramarine. So French Ultramarine is a almost a purple leaning blue. Again, it heavily granulates and it leans towards the red end of the spectrum. Now because it leans towards the red end of the spectrum, you're almost introducing a third primary. So you've got your yellow and your blue. If you stick red in that, you're going to neutralise things, which is why when you use French Ultramarine or even standard Ultramarine, which you can swap out for this one, if you don't have French Ultramarine, you can use ordinary Ultramarine or even cobalt blue. When you add this to your yellows and it's red leaning, it's going to give you a dull, muted, very natural looking green. And if we combine it with what's already a neutral muted yellow, we're going to get a very muted green. So let's have a mix of that. Again, I'm going to start with my yellow first and add the blue. And what we're going to get here is pretty much a khaki green. So let's swatch this one. At this stage, if you're enjoying this tutorial and getting value from it, can I just ask you quickly please to click the like button. YouTube rewards channels with audience interaction, so if you like, share, subscribe or leave me a comment, it helps my channel to grow, and I'm really, really grateful to all of you that watch me on YouTube. And there we are, our khaki green. Now the colours I'm mixing today are 6 out of 20 that I have included on a beginner's mixing leaflet that comes free with each set of these paints. So if you are interested in the paints, do pop into the video description. You'll find a link where you can purchase them, and they do ship them worldwide. Now if this video's just come out, this paint set is just about to be launched, so we're taking pre-orders at the moment and they'll be sent out in about 2 weeks time, and the first 20 actually come with some extras, so worth having a look at that. So here's your khaki. You can mix it with any yellow ochre, any ultramarine. If you don't have ultramarine, your closest one would be cobalt blue. So in most small beginner sets, those that only have maybe 8 or 10 colours, they don't normally include secondary colours. And the reason for this is they want to give you as many primaries and neutrals as possible to give you as many colour mixing options. So I'm going to show you next how to mix a beautiful bright orange if you don't have any secondary colours. So how do we mix a bright orange? First of all, we need a warm yellow. So this one is Dairylide yellow, maybe Dairylide. I never quite know how to pronounce it actually. Let me know in the comments if you know. And here we have this beautiful bright yellow. You can see it's almost tending towards orange as it is, so it's not going to take much to tip it in to orange. Now if you don't have this colour, the closest one would probably be cadmium yellow deep. You could also use something like Winsor & Newton have a very beautiful transparent yellow. You could use something like that, or of course Indian yellow. So you want this bright, warm, egg yolky yellow, and then we're going to add a scarlet red to it. So the red in my set is Pyrrole red, which is scarlet, but it does have slightly pinkish undertones. Your closest to this would be something like cadmium red, or any of those vermilion type bright scarlet reds, or cadmium red deep. So you're going to choose a orangey yellow and a scarlet red. So what we're going to do now is, again, I'm going to start with the weaker colour, which is the yellow, and because it's almost orange already, we won't need much red to tip it over the edge. So let's start with this puddle of yellow. I'm trying to do more of the mixing on camera because many of you have asked for that, and we're going to pop a little bit of red in. That may already be too much. Let's have a look. No, it looks like it's just right, actually. So let's swatch our bright orange. There we are, beautiful colour. Now, many of you like to comment on my nails, and we have additional fun today because they're about to fall off, actually. Well, not my whole nail, let's not be overly dramatic about this, but the gel nails that I have done. The lady that does them for me, her daughter has had a persistent cough, so she's had to sort of isolate and get her daughter a test to see if she has the COVID, and in the meantime she can't take any appointments. So my nails, which should have been done 2 days ago, are literally falling off, so that will be interesting. So there are actually 3 secondary colours. So we've done greens, we've done orange. How about a nice bright purple? So what do we need to make a bright purple? Well, you know, I said to you that the French ultramarine leans towards red purple. We're going to start with that because, of course, it's almost purple. So we're just going to need to tip it over the edge. And what we're going to choose this time is not a scarlet-based red, but we're going to choose a pink-based red, and that's important. And there are lots of options here for mixing. So let's swatch that pink first. And the one I have here is Permanent Rose. So you can see this is an absolutely stunning red that when watered down becomes this beautiful bright pink. So if you don't have a rose in your set, you can use Ochre pink, you can use quinacridone rose. At a push you can use something like a madder or an alizarin crimson, but be aware they won't give you such a bright result, but you will still get a good result if you're using one of those pinks or one of those madder reds. And next, let's swatch the ultramarine again, and you can see how these will get you a really nice purple. Now, because ultramarine granulates, this will be a purple that's quite granular. So although the colour is going to be similar to something like a ready-made blue-violet, it's going to have more granulation, in other words, more speckles in it. Now, although it may seem like the pink is the weaker colour here, it's actually the strongest. It's a very strong colour. So I'm going to start here with the blue because, just like the last mix, this blue is not going to take much red to tip it into purple. So here's our blue, and a small amount of pink is all we need. So it's starting to go purple here. It depends how far I want to push it. I think I'd like it a little bit more purple than that. So let's get a bit more pink in it. And let's swatch our nice purple. So here we have that lovely, strong, deep purple. Just like before, if you don't have ultramarine, you can use cobalt blue. So we've made some really useful secondary colours, but what about your earths and neutrals? Now, most beginner sets come with a couple of earth colours, but they tend to be very much on the warm side. So what if you want some of those cooler neutrals? What about mixing those really difficult colours? Now, this next colour I have named Concrete because it's great for things like pathways. Let me show you how it's made. So let's make our concrete colour. Now I'm going to be using this colour here, which is Raw Umber, and I've got a little sample pot of it here. If you purchase these paints, they'll either be available in tubes or pans. It's quite a weak colour, so I just want to make sure I've got some wet paint here. And I'll swatch this one for you. So Raw Umber is a really useful colour. It's a very cool, weak brown. So let me show you what it looks like. It's great for things like sort of light coloured tree trunks, and it's a lot less rich than some other browns. Now, I asked specifically when I was designing this colour for it not to be too yellow, because it gives us a lot of options when mixing if it isn't too yellow. So if you're using a different brand or even a different brown, you may get slightly different results. I'm going to explain to you how to counteract that if you've got too much yellow in your Raw Umber or if you're using one of the warmer browns. So the closest colour to this would probably be something like Mars Brown or Van Dyke Brown, but you can use any brown. Just check that you're using the coolest brown, in other words the one that looks less yellow-red than the others. Now added to that is another really useful neutral, and this is Payne's Grey. So Payne's Grey is a staining colour and it's a blue based grey. Some are bluer than others and some tend towards purple. This is a beautiful colour and it's a great alternative to black. So if you're new to painting and you want to get those darks but you don't want the sort of the harshness and the dullness of black, you can use Payne's grey. I'm swatching it a little, it does go very, very dark. I'm swatching it a little light here just so you can see what the colour actually looks like. So this is our strong colour and this is our weak colour. So we're going to start with the weaker colour when it comes to mixing. And on the leaflet I've designed, actually we always start with the weakest colour. So I list the weakest colour first for you so that you know which one to add first and which one to add second. And hopefully then you don't waste lots of paint. So there's my raw umber, and I'm just going to add a touch of Payne's grey to it. As it's the stronger colour, we're going to go in fairly carefully and just see where that one gets us. You can always add more of these staining colours, but you can't really take them out. And then in order to sort of play catch up and try and get the colour back to where it was, you know, you're ending up sometimes using up so much paint. It's almost better if you've gone that far wrong to start again. So here we are, we're starting to get that neutral shade now. With these lighter, more neutral shades, it can be quite hard to see exactly how they look until you swatch them, so that's a good idea. If you swatch them and they're too dark, you just add more water to lighten. There we are, look at that beautiful colour, lovely neutral warm grey, absolutely fantastic for pathways. I've called this colour concrete because that's what I think it's most useful for. Now, if you're following along at home with this and you're using your own colours, this is one of the more tricky ones. And the reason for that is that a lot of raw umbers and browns in general have a lot of yellow in. Many Payne's greys have a lot of blue in. Blue and yellow makes green. So if you try to make this and you find that you're getting green, what you need to do is put a little bit of rose or pink, one of those colours I told you about earlier, permanent rose, opera pink, quinacridone rose, put the tiniest touch of that into your mix and it will neutralize any green. So if you've got my paints, this will work. This color mix also works with the Talon's Rembrandt paints because I have those too. As far as other brands go, you'll just have to experiment. If you start getting green, pop a little pink in. So the dark brown you get in a beginner's set is usually warm based too. So what if you want a cool dark brown, a really cold dark brown, you know, the colour of sort of a natural dark brown tree trunk, for example, hasn't got a lot of red in it. I'm going to show you now how to mix a colour that will give you a good basic sepia. So sepia is a lovely colour, you can buy it ready-made, but you can also make it yourself. So let me show you how to take your warm dark brown and turn it into sepia. So this mix is all about giving you more options beyond your rich warm brown. So I've got here burnt sienna, so this is the colour I've included in my set for my warm brown. A lot of beginners sets, however, include burnt umber, and this mix that I'm going to give you works just as well with burnt umber, so you can use that too. And then we're going to add Payne's grey again. Now if you don't have Payne's grey, an alternative for cooling your browns down is actually blue, and you want one of the red based blues like Ultramarine. It can also be done with indigo. If you do get that slight push into green, just like the last mix, you can add a bit of pink. Now although burnt sienna is a very strong colour, it's not as strong as Payne's grey, so we're going to start with the burnt sienna. And then we're just going to add a little bit of Payne's grey until we cool and darken that brown as much as we want to. And you can push it, still fairly warm there, but you can push it as far as you want. So I'm going to go darker still, and we're now starting to get that much cooler dark brown. So let's swatch that. There we are, look at that. It's a really lovely colour for tree trunks. I mean, I realise tree trunks come in all sorts of colours, but you know, those sort of dark brown ones, the ones that we get in England a lot, oak trees, things like that. And so you can expand your range of browns far more by adding some of your Payne's grey to your brown to cool it and to darken it and get more of a sepia tone. And there are several more neutrals included on the colour mixing leaflet that comes with this set. So it's all about learning to expand the basic colours you have and make some beautiful new colours. So do let me know in the comments which of these was your favourite colour, and if you have any of your own recipes, do share those with me as well. If you enjoyed this tutorial, you might like a tutorial that I made about adjusting ready-made greens. So it gives you far more options for making natural greens from some of the ones that you have already that may be a little bit on the harsh side. You can watch that tutorial right now.